Hello guys and welcome back to the Stacey West YouTube channel. I am Ben and I'm joined by Martyn from the It's Not Orange podcast, because the Imps are on the road again on Tuesday night and we're heading over to Bloomfield Road to take on Blackpool. Martyn, how are we doing, mate? You well?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm still recovering from the shock of seeing Blackpool win 4 matches in a row, because I don't think it's happened for a very long time. So yeah, it's all good.
Good stuff. Yeah, well, I mean, we'll jump straight into it. Obviously, didn't have the best start of the campaign this time round. Didn't win in 4 matches. Obviously, sacked the manager. Neil Critchley went off and did his own thing after that. And then you brought in Steve Bruce, which I think probably raised a few eyebrows from a few corners of the league. We thought, well, is it an appointment that makes sense? But since he's come in, you've won 4 on the bounce, like you say. So what's he done to change things? And does it look as good from inside the Blackpool camp as it does to everybody sort of watching from afar?
Yeah, it does. I mean, what Steve Bruce has done quite simply is to simplify it. I think we're playing a 4-4-2 with 2 natural wingers in CJ Hamilton and Rob Apter. And Neil Critchley last season, for some bizarre reason, and I was a big fan of Neil Critchley and a lot of Blackpool fans. Obviously, his first time round, and then went to Aston Villa with Gerrard. Ill-fated time there, didn't work. Went to QPR, didn't work. Sacked after 10 games. Came back to us, and we thought, right, okay, should never have left in the first place. It's going to be great. At home, we were fantastic. Away, we were terrible, because every single game last season, regardless of what he told the press, we played either a 3-5-2 or a 5-3-2, depending on how you want to see it. Didn't suit the players in the team. You had wingers playing at wing back, etc. And it started off this season, exactly the same. Completely stubborn, wouldn't change it, no plan B. Steve Bruce has obviously come in and looked at our sort of best policy really is to attack with width. Rob Apter had a great loan spell with Tranmere. He's been a talent on our books for a couple of years. He's still only very young. Plays for the Scottish under-21 side. And Steve Bruce has obviously just looked at it and said, we're going to play an old-fashioned 4-4-2. I'm sure he played that an awful lot of his managerial career. A lot of people seem to think 4-4-2 is dead, but it just suits us. I think it suits Blackpool. We have this history, and sometimes it's overblown, but we have this history of playing with wingers, going all the way back to Stanley Hughes and that. But it's just an exciting way to play. And I think he's just looked at the team and said, we need to play to your strengths. And he's kept it very simple. And he's just instilled some confidence in what we already knew. We knew we had a good squad, but it was massively underperforming. I mean, when he went, Keogh obviously had a couple of games in charge. We won at Blackburn in the Cup for the first time since I was born, I think. And he set the sort of the tone for that. And then Bruce has just come in and added a bit of nous to it. And, we're pretty decent at the back. We have given some chances away, but just a refreshingly kind of obvious old-fashioned way of playing, which is extremely entertaining. That's what he's brought to us. He's just put a smile back on our faces after watching a very overcoached, complicated, unfolded deck chair of a formation under Critchley.
Fair enough. I mean, yeah, it's one of those, isn't it, where when somebody comes in that wants to do the basics well, everything else just seems to slot into place around that. And it sounds like that's essentially what he's brought in to the camp at the minute. So I wanted to talk briefly about a couple of the early results, but I suppose they're a bit irrelevant at this point. I mean, obviously we played Cambridge on Saturday, and we found them to be not. I mean, I spoke to Jules, a Cambridge podcast earlier in the week as well, and he was saying that they're playing some really good football. They just can't seem to create any chances. And I think they did play some nice stuff, but I mean, I could see why they were struggling. And I think looking at that 4-4 result, it seems a bit of an outlier for me. For the whole lot. But then obviously after that, the results have turned more positive. I think, was it 2 clean sheets in the last 2 games, and before that was only 1 conceded. So yeah, he's definitely doing something right. I mean, is apart from the tactical changes, has there been anything really noticeable around the camp? Is there a mood shift, anything like that?
Well, I think, and the thing with the Cambridge game, of course, is that that was under Keogh. And that was 3 days after Critchley left. And to be honest, we were 4-1 up and made 3 individual errors. I can't tell you how bad the errors were. We got overconfident. I think we were shocked because we scored 4 goals. The players were a bit shell shocked and made some really bad individual errors. Players like Lee Evans trod on the ball and kind of gave it away. And of course, Shane Lavery we were in the score, which was always happening. But that is a bit of a weird anomaly. I mean, we drew 2-2 with Wickham as well under Keogh, and then the Blackpool game, and then Bruce came in. But I'll tell you something that does sum it up for me is that yesterday after the game we beat Burton 3-0, and 2 of our players went up to the North Stand behind the goal and were given a fist bump, like the Jurgen Klopp style, punched the air 3 times and all that, and the crowd go yes, did all that. Yeah. Neil Critchley used to do that after every home game, and the 2 players that did it were 2 players that, by all accounts, had kind of fallen out with him. And I think it was planned, and it was total sarcasm. And I think the players were just very restricted under Critchley. It was very rigid. And you would think as well that a 62-year-old manager coming in, I mean, a friend of mine described him as why have we appointed a dinosaur? But clearly we haven't, because he's clearly a very intelligent football man and has kept in touch with what is relevant in football, even though he's had 2 years out. But I think it's just players playing in the right position. If you watch CJ Hamilton play, if you're familiar with him, because he's played for Manchester, and people know who he is. He can't send his way out of a paper bag. So why would you ask him to play left or right wing back or whatever? And I think it's players playing in their proper position with a simple set of instructions. And the mood is just one of, I think the players must think, well, we knew really this was the way to go about it. The previous gaffer was so stubborn and so stuck in his ways that he would not change. So I think it's just that release of it. Look, listen, lads, go on and play. I mean, for us to go to Charlton and Huddersfield, go on, I don't care who you are, to win those back-to-back away games in the space of 3 days is, for us, it's unheard of. And for a lot of teams, you'd be thinking, well, 4 points would be great. 6 points is dreamland, and it was, it was great. And to follow it up with Burton, so I think it's just belief and knowing that we always had the ability, but we needed somebody to bring it out of us. And obviously, it's early days, but you can't argue with 4 out of 4, can you?
Absolutely not. No, and it is it's an impressive little mini run for sure, and it's a bit of a dream start for Bruce in his new role. So let's talk about a couple of the arrivals that you've had over the summer and what sort of impact they've made. I think the one that caught quite a few people's eyes from where we were was Elliot Embleton coming back on a permanent deal from Sunderland. And then I think there's a couple of other ones. Ashley Fletcher coming down from Watford as well. How big an impact have some of the summer arrivals made? And are there any that really stand out to you so far?
Funnily enough, those 2 have made, unfortunately, very little impact. Really, because Elliot Embleton, I guess, is still trying to get up to match fitness and hasn't really, he's not really started for us. Ashley Fletcher, look, with Ashley Fletcher,
he got suspended, didn't he?
He did, yeah, he did. It was a little bit unfair, I think, but it was sort of retrospective. It was against Wickham. When we scored a goal, I think they gave him a 3-match ban for doing something a bit naughty. But the thing with Ashley Fletcher is he has no goal scoring record throughout his career. The fact of it is he doesn't, and he's a big lad. And when he comes on, he puts off about it. He's just hampered by this really. I mean, he played 30 games for Sheffield Wednesday towards the end of last season, didn't score a goal. I think he's only scored something like, is it 8 in 6 seasons or something like that? He's just I think he's benefited from coming out of Man United's academy and got an awful lot of moves. And we might well see the best of him. I'm not going to definitely put a downer on the fact we're playing really well at the moment, but he's not really made much of an impact. The ones that have are people like Lee Evans, who's an absolute Rolls Royce of a midfielder at this level. He's a joke, frankly, as Tom, my fellow or co-host on our podcast would say, is absolute joke of a midfielder. You know, when he's fit, he's a great player. The problem with him is that he's not had an awful lot of fitness in the last few years. He's really struggled to put games together, but so far so good. He's had little knocks, but he's superb. Don Ballard, who we got on loan from Southampton, unfortunately he's injured. He's out for 3 or 4 weeks with he popped his shoulder basically against Huddersfield. He's been great. You know, him and Kyle Joseph, they just press. They're just an absolute machine. They run around like, you know, headless chickens with a purpose, if you know what I mean. They're just a pest. They're just a pest. So those two have been great. And Harry Tyra, who we got on loan from Everton in goal, you know, because we lost Dan Grimshaw for a lot of money to Plymouth. Our other keeper is Richard Donald, who's, you know, veteran, say, and we needed a really good, confident, youthful number one. And Harry Tyra has been yesterday made some really good saves, been superb. So there's been some real impact from the new signings. You know, a couple of them haven't really made much of an impact. And Kyle Joseph is like a new signing because we got him last season. He was injured pretty quickly. He'd had not much of a pre-season last year. Came in, struggled, scored 1 goal. And again, I believe that under the previous manager, they didn't see eye to eye. He wasn't really played to his strengths. Now he's playing as part of a front two, and he's superb. I think he scored 4 this season now, 3 or 4. He's just got frightening pace, big lines, well built. You know, I'm sure you've seen him play. You know, he's had quite a lot of football for somebody so young, but he's a good player. And yeah, I think he's like a new signing, even though he was with us. He's been with us for a year or so.
Oh, good stuff. Well, I mean, yeah, you've mentioned a couple of the outgoings. We shan't dwell too much on them, but I think there's a similarity there in that, you know, both Blackpool and Lincoln, we both lost a number one keeper for a decent amount of money over the summer. And I think it is always interesting to see when a new goalkeeper comes in, because it's that one position, isn't it, where you've got to nail it quickly, or you'll find yourself on the bench quite quickly with somebody else coming in, and if they do well, then that's your spot lost. And yeah, I think we've done all right with George Wickens coming in from Fulham. But yeah, I think it's always an interesting one to watch on that one. So let's start to look ahead to Tuesday night then. You've mentioned, you know, it's a 4-4-2. You like to play with a bit of width. What else can we expect from Blackpool as Lincoln fans? And I think, is there anything that you've seen of us that worries you slightly?
We, as I said to you, we do surrender chances. I think it's because probably as well we got off to such a bad start. I mean, if you'd seen us against Stockport, I know it's under a different manager, but if you'd seen us against Stockport, we look like we're going to be in the bottom 4 all season if you went off that game. The defence can at times be a little bit, what's the word? Maybe a little bit static potentially.
Right.
We've got two very quick fullbacks. They like to get forward, and I guess the problem is that, you know, it's the same old story. If they lose the ball in a silly position, Jordan Gabriel on Saturday against Burton, we were cruising the game, and then he decided to play like a square pass across the edge of or just outside the box, and it let them in, and Harry Tyra made a great save. So the thing is that both our fullbacks are definitely footballers, if you know what I mean, and I think they have a great emphasis on getting forward and supporting their respective wingers, but they can occasionally give you a chance, you know. But then I think this is league. Look, it's League One, isn't it? I mean, you know, I haven't seen a team this season that won't give you a chance. Even Birmingham will give you a chance, as they proved yesterday. So I think sometimes sloppy in possession. You know, Lee Evans is great, but yesterday Albie Morgan, who we really like, he scored against Charlton. I think he had his best game yesterday, and it's maybe that a little bit. We have to look after the ball slightly better. There's always improvement. I'm sure Bruce would say. He said actually after the Huddersfield game, we need to improve defensively, and we just kept a clean sheet. So we'll always probably give a chance away or two, but as I say, any team could say that. But I think probably, I would say it's probably that. I would say it's I think just probably still adapting to a new formation at times, because we used to play with 3 centre-backs and we would just pass it along, you know, the edge of our back line and just back, forth. And the problem with that is when you've got a third centre-back there, they're often just a spare part, aren't they, in possession, because they don't really do anything. So I think it's just still taking a little bit of time for that mentality. But overall, we're solid. And I think we will get more solid as the time goes on, hopefully. But you'll get a chance. Of course you will. You might get several. You know, but
well, I think
it'll be a good game. I'll tell you this now. It's every game I've been entertained, and that's the number one. As a football fan, you want to be entertained, and you want to win and be entertained, don't you? And we've done that so far. We're certainly not boring.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was one of the major criticisms to come out of the game that we had against Wigan the other weekend. It was a 0-0, and it was the epitome of a 0-0. You know, we didn't. Yeah. Neither side really created all that much, and I think it was just a bit of a stalemate. But I think it sounds like there's going to be a good midfield battle on Tuesday, particularly, you know, with Evans and with Ethan Arahan on our side as well. I think every word that you use to describe Lee Evans for me is exactly how we talk about Ethan Arahan. He's an absolute Rolls Royce of a midfielder, and I think we're starting to feel that we would be very lucky if he's still with us by the end of the season. Let's put it that way. But yeah, I mean, look, I think there's going to be some. I think it'll be a really good game as well. To be honest with you, it sounds like if you're doing. I've always thought if you're doing the simple stuff right, everything else kind of just falls into place. And it sounds like that's what Steve Bruce is now doing and getting Blackpool doing as well. Obviously, the big sort of monkey on our back at the minute is that we've just broken our club record for the number of away games on the bounce where we've been undefeated. And of course, the team that beat us last while we were away from home was Blackpool. So I think it's probably about that point where I say, dare we make a prediction? And do you think that you're going to be able to bookend that run of 15 or 14 games unbeaten? Sorry.
Well, I would say is, by the way, that away record is incredible. As a team last season that couldn't string back-to-back away wins together and went to places like Cheltenham, Burton, Port Vale, your place, and threw in absolute stinkers. I know how hard it is to be unbeaten in 5 or 6 away games. So to go 13 is unbelievable. I can only go on the way we're playing at the moment. And yeah, obviously, when you've won 4 games on the trot, you stick your chest out, don't you, and say we can take anyone on in this league. And I think we can. But I also probably think you can. You know, there's nothing to be scared. I think Birmingham's ridiculous spending aside, even Wrexham, I still think that Wrexham are going to ship some goals and lose some games away from home this season. I don't think there's an outstanding second team, if you like. I think it's up for grabs. So, yeah, of course, I think we can beat you on Tuesday night. But ultimately, as well, if we don't play particularly well, we're just as likely to be picked off. So I don't know, really. I think it is an unfortunate stat that you've got. That obviously, as every game keeps going, the pressure must be immense. At least you've got that record. Yeah. Or, you know, but I guess it can't go on forever, can it? And you wouldn't expect it to. You know, if it ends, you've had a magnificent record, and then you start a new one, don't you? So yeah, we can. I think it will be tight, and I do agree with Tom and a couple of the other people in the podcast chat, you know, on WhatsApp. I think this could be the hardest of the games we've played so far, simply because it doesn't matter. Huddersfield were terrible, right? Huddersfield were terrible. Charlton were bang average. Burton are Burton. I don't expect Burton to be anywhere near the top 10. But you guys have been on this great record, and it's time. Certainly, the league needs to take you seriously. They need to take us seriously, and 1 or 2 others that maybe aren't fancied need to be taken seriously. So I think it'd be a cracking game. Yeah, I would back us to win, but I wouldn't be surprised if it went the other way potentially, because you're a good side. Simple as that.
Yeah, it's always appreciated when people recognise that. You know, we shout about it, and we always say we're little old Lincoln. And yeah, when other teams sort of come in and give us a little bit of stick for it, it's like, well, all right, we'll settle it on the pitch.
Well, that's what we've been talking about this again today. You know, we sometimes as Blackpool fans, we have to remember we've been in the Premier League, albeit for 1 season. We've also had in the last 15 years, we've had 17 years, we've probably had 8-9 seasons of Championship. So You shouldn't be little. It shouldn't be little Blackpool, and it shouldn't be little Lincoln, because you're up there on merit, and obviously you did really well. Had your manager have come in at the start of last season,
yeah,
you would have been going places. There's no about it, and he's carried it on this season clearly. We should never ever get down on ourselves, depending on there's been clubs in this league that get 40,000 every week, 30,000 every week. It really doesn't matter. You have to believe, don't you? You have to believe in what you're doing, and believe in your manager, and believe in your players. And if you're all together, which we didn't have at the start of the season, a lot of people didn't like Neil Critchley for what he did to us in the first place. The ground, the fans were not united. I think they are now, and who would have thought Steve Bruce would be the man to come in and unite Blackpool? I'd have got a lot of money if I'd have put that on with the bookmakers at the start of the season. But I just think that you've got a great chance of getting in that top six, and so have we. So this is what we need to do. There's too much hype about Wrexham and Birmingham, and people need to remember there's an awful lot of good footballers and good footballing sides in this league. The standard is getting better and better every year, and it's harder and harder every year. And there's no reason why we can't be in that top six and totally smash gate crash the party. So why not?
Absolutely, yeah. Let's be the champions for getting League One football properly properly recognised. So I'm going to say that I honestly, given the recent run and given the sort of upswing and everything else that's going on at Blackpool at the minute, I would be delighted if we can get a draw on Tuesday night. I think.
Okay.
I'm not downplaying our chances. I think we do have a great chance of sneaking something, but I just think with everything that's been going on, and with everything that's seemingly starting to click for you guys at the moment, I think a draw is the result to aim for on Tuesday night, which is perfect because it keeps the run going, but it also doesn't mean that we drop any points. So, but yeah, that's probably going to do us. I'll give you 20, 30 seconds or so if you want to advertise yourself, plug your podcast, and let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, so we're the It's Not Orange podcast. We started just over a year ago. So funnily enough, yesterday we played Burton, and our first ever podcast or preview podcast was against Burton. We played them on the opening day of last season. It is 99.9% powered by Tom Main, who's a terrific lad. We got talking in the summer last year, started talking in a podcast, and then he took it up and ran with it, and he's been absolutely great. We're getting a good amount of hits. We've just done a couple of lives as well for the first time on YouTube, which has been really good. They've been pretty well received. We were pretty much on the whistle against Huddersfield. We went live and did a podcast. It was great. We've got an ever growing number of people listening to us. As I said, some of the kids at my school who are Preston fans even listen to it, so we must be doing something right, and they haven't insulted me or abused me for it. So, no, we're great. So you can find, obviously, as the saying goes, you can find us anywhere where you get your usual podcast from. You can find us on Spotify, you can find us on YouTube. Check out the YouTube channel, and you can obviously find us in your Apple or Android podcast store. We're everywhere.
Great stuff. Well, look, Martyn, thank you ever so much for coming on. Really do appreciate it, and yeah, good luck for the rest of the season, with Tuesday accepted, of course.
Cheers. Yeah, all the best. Good luck. Keep sticking it up to the Birminghams of this world after Tuesday night. Brilliant.
Absolutely. And thank you very much for watching, guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and all of that other stuff that we always tell you to do. But until next time, up the Imps.
Lincoln City are the team, the Radius is their name. Stinsel Bank is their home ground, and football is their game. So come and cheer them on, you lads, support them all the way. Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white, the Imps are here to stay. Oh,